Hello, hello, hello. Assalamu alaikum. Ji ayanu. Pakhair ragale. Ni hao. Chunashumme. Washmale. Ohio Gonzalez. Guten Morgen. Hi, hugs and hellos. Hola, bonjour, privyet. And a very amazing Khosh Amadi to everybody who's tuned into PT World and are watching World this morning. Alongside the one and the only Shazad Khan. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen, for tuning in. It is indeed Monday today, and we're ready to kickstart our week. And we hope that you guys are even ready to kickstart your week with energy and fervor and zeal too as well. I mean, these were the words which actually came up to my mind right now. But as a matter of fact, ladies and gentlemen, I say it every time, whenever we are opening the show, that in life, for whatever things which we think at night, there might be insecurities, there might be quite a lot of goals or focuses which you need to be focused on. But as a matter of fact, we tend to forget them whenever we get up the next day and we see the hassle and bustle, or we see our friends and relatives and whatnot. But please make sure that you do not forget about your goals, and every day is definitely a step towards your destiny. So please make sure that you take that step today. Right now, what we are going to do is that we are actually going to take a look at what's happening around the globe. So top stories coming up. First things first. Good morning. U.S. Defense Secretary James Mattis will arrive in Islamabad today on a day-long visit to Pakistan. During the meetings, he will discuss regional security, peace, Afghan conflict, and other bilateral issues. Information Minister Maryam Aurangzeb has said that legal administrative steps are being taken for welfare of disabled persons. Pakistan and Russia have signed the protocol to further enhance cooperation in diverse fields, including investment in energy sector. China launched a land exploration satellite into a preset orbit from the Jiquan Satellite Launch Center in the Gobi Desert in northwest China. Argentines took part in the annual Great National Milonga, a mass street tango performance to celebrate the famous dance. And last but not the least, Tokyo's park along Meguro River, a popular spot for viewing cherry blossoms each spring, is now transformed by pink LED lights hanging from the trees, resembling the pretty flowers ahead of the Christmas season. Wow, looks cool. All right, ladies and gentlemen, these were the top stories, and time now for a public service message. Let's see, what do I have in the box today for all of you out there? Okay, so I've got two public service messages today. So the first one obviously goes out for every parent who are out there and who think that their kids or daughters or sons are not very responsible because of the fact that they cannot look after themselves. So first of all, for all of those parents who are out there, the season's changing, it's winters already, it's getting cold, and kids these days have this habit of walking barefoot on the floor, which actually gives us influenza as well, or most commonly known as flu. So please make sure that you look after them, or they're wearing socks each time whenever they feel like walking around as well, or they have slippers right in front of them, or you keep on reiterating to them. Make sure that you keep yourselves warm. And one more thing which I think is very dangerous, and I've actually gone through that phase as well. So what happens is that when it's winters, we want our rooms to be very warm. So what we do is that we put in the gas heaters and then we turn them on. And if accidentally, God forbid, if we sleep, so all the oxygen is actually turned into fumes because of the fact that the heater needs the oxygen to burn, and then there's no more oxygen to inhale. So please make sure that whenever you turn on your heater, do not sleep while the heater is turned on. Just turn it off. And now the second one, which we keep on reiterating on the show, that is that please make sure, if you're driving towards work or if you're taking your kids to school, and if you want to drive slow, if you've left the home earlier and there's still more time in your office timings or school timings, then please drive in the slower lane. Because people over here have no concept of the slower lane and the fast lane or the overtaking lane. and this might actually cause somebody a bit of problem, because if they are, you know, moving late or they are already late, what they have to do is they have to rush a bit. So even if you dip or whatever, people do not move. So please make sure that you keep an eye on your rear view mirrors and the side mirrors as well, so that everybody can make in time. All right, so this was a public service message, and now we've got two important things to share. So the first one comes over here. Ladies and gentlemen, on the 1st of December, it was the HIV day, and whenever we talk about such days, obviously it's about spreading awareness. And the 2017's theme was actually everybody counts. So that means that for all those people within our community, may them be transgenders, may them be boys, may them be boys. And I think I would love to explain over here what we're talking about. So what we're talking about is that for all those people who might not be from the same community or from the same class where we live in, at times they have been marginalized. There are 21 million people who are going through therapies these days, and the treatments which actually allow you to prolong your life are very amazing. But as a matter of fact, quite a lot of people are not really subjected to all of those medical facilities which are available within their countries. So, and whenever we talk about having everybody together, so all of those things, you know, for example, human rights, equity, all of these things are the basic foundation of providing anybody, you know, the chance to actually be a part of any treatment or whatever precautions have been taken. But as a matter of fact, what has been noticed is that, you know, for all of those men having relationships with men or transgenders, these people do not get the basic facilities too as well. So it's our job to raise awareness, and for everybody who's out there, I think HIV is not one of those diseases which is contagious, or probably you cannot get it by touching somebody. So please make sure that you are inclusive of all of those people within the schools and whatnot. And then later on, this is the thing which comes on. And that is that for all those people who are actually suffering from HIV, even if they have got themselves tested, they do not go out for their treatments. They feel as if it's going to be an act full of shame that, you know, okay, I've been infected with this. Well, it's not like that. It's not always like this, because we have got this habit of believing that, you know, there might be one of my actions which wasn't very right and I've been infected with HIV, while using other syringes, you know, or using infected syringes or blood transfusions can even result in HIV. So please make sure that we are always very inclusive of every member of the society, and we make sure that they are safe and healthy as well. With this, we are going to go for a short break, and when you guys are going to come back, we're going to talk about something very special which occurred on Sunday, but we'll be talking about it on Monday. Good morning. Let's take a break. All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back. For everybody who just got tuned into PT World, you watching World this morning alongside Shazad Khan. Earlier we were talking about World AIDS Day, which was actually on 1st of December. But as a matter of fact, on 3rd of December, which was Sunday, there was another amazing special day as well. And because I've mentioned it earlier as well, that for all those people who are out there who think that, you know, we keep on talking about all of these days, it is to create that ripple effect. For example, when you throw a stone into a pond, you see waves coming towards you and then going back after they hit the land which is on the side of the area as well. So this is to reiterate, this is to remind you that, you know, we have to be together to get rid of all of these things which we have within our community. For example, disparities there and whatnot. So on 3rd of December, it was actually the annual observance of the International Day of Disabled Persons, which was basically proclaimed in back in 1992, and since then we have been kept on moving, and then there were different things, and now even the census took place, and then there are issues with the census. But as a matter of fact, what we have been reiterating in all of our shows was that, for example, people with special needs, they need to go to the same schools we go. Why can't they be a part of us? Well, why do we actually have to build other schools for them? And even if they have to study with us, there can be audio libraries, there can be different ways and different mediums into how actually cater to all of this. But other than that, as a society, we need to step up. We need to get rid of our egos as well. And we need to get rid of all of these issues which are very meager to human life. So please make sure that we are inclusive, because this year's theme is transformation towards sustainable and resilient society for all. And this theme is basically because of the fact that by 2030, the SDGs, it's in line with them. We have to fulfill the SDGs to be actually amongst all of those countries where they're actually pacing ahead too as well. And we're lacking behind. Other than that, earlier, while I was reading the news, so there was this statement which I kind of love quite a lot. That was the Information Minister, Mariam Aurangzeb, has said that legal administrative steps are being taken for welfare of disabled persons. So now this legal word actually holds the key to it. We'll be discussing that as well. But first of all, let me just introduce to you my amazing guest. So on my right-hand side, we have been joined by the Chief Executive of the Potohar Mental Health Association, PMHA. He's none other than Mr. Zulkarnain Asgar. Hello, sir. Assalamu alaikum. How are you?
Fine, thank you. How are you?
Absolutely perfect. You look dashing and you look always young as well. And
Thank
alongside
you.
Mr. Zulkarnain Asgar, we have been joined by the Executive Director of STEP, Mr. Muhammad Atif Sheikh. Hello, sir. Assalamu alaikum. How are you?
Walaikum assalam. You had said good morning in 5 different languages, but you missed the Japanese one. Ohio gozaimasu.
Ohio gozaimasu. Well, I usually say that it wasn't 5, it is actually 12 different
Ah,
languages,
okay.
but it's perfectly all right. And even if you want in Thai, I can do that too as a swabi up.
Okay,
All right.
great.
Okay, but other than that, let's get started with the conversation. First of all, every year you guys come over here, take out time from your busy life and the schedule, and you sit down with us to let the people know what's happening and what's not. First of all, how would you highlight the importance of such a day? And then moving on, what problems do you still see are prevalent within the society related to people with special needs? Mr. Zulkarnain.
Okay, first of all, we need to understand that it's very important to highlight these issues because without creating awareness, cannot be occur. First, second point is because there are a lot of issues still prevail in our society. If we talk about infrastructural barriers are there, and attitudinal barriers are more important because if you remove infrastructural barrier, so if you don't remove attitudinal barrier or social barrier, you cannot bring change really, because still there are a lot of myth prevails in our society. We conduct a small study in district Rawalpindi, and people still feel person with disabilities or disabled children with disabilities are a result of their parents' sins or some like they're something they are something test of their parent. They are something
And this is very common in our society.
Yeah, this is not prevail in Pindi and Islamabad, rural area of Pindi of Islamabad. These myths exist in Sindh
the
and
urban
the
areas.
urban areas, and you can imagine we conducted. We've talked to more than 500 women with disabilities, girls with disabilities during these 6 months, right?
Okay.
And can you imagine 80% women with disabilities, girls with disabilities haven't their first medical checkup in their whole life, and
Oh my God.
situation is quite worse, but things are changing slowly, though pace is quite slow, but things are changing. We need to address the attitudinal issues. Everyone has right to access to the medical facilities. Advanced education for all should be there, but without inclusive education system, without allocation of funds, allocation of budgets, accessible infrastructure, one cannot bring change. That these things are still there, needs to be addressed, and the state's responsibility to
Well,
pass
obviously
the
it is state's
legislation.
responsibility, but then at the same time, human rights comes in as well, equity comes in, and the community comes in, because as I earlier mentioned, that these are the basic fundamentals of having, all the community together as well, or the society, or this is how we probably check upon things as well. But Mr. Atif Sheikh, moving on to you now. First of all, this theme does not sound very relevant to you. This is what you said, and this is how I'm going to initiate the conversation with you. So it says transformation towards sustainable and resilient society for all. What do we mean by that?
Yeah, actually, why I've said, first of all, let me
Yeah.
why I've said that this is not very relevant to the society in Pakistan particularly. Actually, we are very far behind. We haven't talked about the basic things for a person with disabilities so far. I'm really sorry.
Sorry.
This is actually in line with the Sustainable Development Goals. This is the first time, like globally, we are discussing about disability inclusion in not only UN Convention on the Rights of Persons with Disabilities, but also in the Sustainable Development Millennium Development Agenda for 2030.
Yeah.
And we are also talking about disability in the Disaster Risk Reduction Global Framework, which is called Sendai Framework. So, resilience, inclusion, and the inclusive society. These are the themes of this year, relevant to each other, and they are aligned with international commitments. Pakistan is obviously one part of those, all
Exactly.
commitments, including UNCRPD, SDGs, Insurance Strategy, and Sendai Framework. So it's very comprehensive. But in Pakistani society, we are still talking about the very basic issues, very basic barriers which people with disabilities are facing in
I
our
mean,
society.
for example, Zulkarnain
Yeah.
Saab said infrastructure and the
Let me,
attitudinal problem.
let me
Very basic.
Let me categorize
Sure.
these four major issues,
Go ahead.
including what Zulkarnain has said, and we have been discussing it so many times, but it should be reminded on International Day of Person with Disabilities
Sure.
every year.
Go ahead.
Until we got the solution. The first barrier is the attitudinal barrier, the negative attitudes of the society. Because of negative attitudes, a big number of persons with disabilities, they are imprisoned in their houses because of this negative attitude. They are
Exactly.
prisoners in their houses
So they can
for whole of their
take their
life.
kids out to a family
Yes.
function, or they do not
Allah
have a
log
say.
hai, bimar hai, these kinds of words are very common in our society. So they are imprisoned by the attitudes.
Yeah.
Second, the biggest barrier which they face, somehow if they fight against this attitudinal barrier, fortunately they have got a good family, educated environment, and like cooperative people even in the villages. The second barrier starts, which is infrastructural barrier, environmental barrier.
Yeah.
Like parents are willing to send their children with disabilities to the school, but not a single school in their community.
Yeah,
is
the
inclusive.
administration is not allowing.
Yeah, it's infrastructure issue.
Yeah.
So second barrier is environmental barrier, and the third barrier, which Zulkarnain, my friend, is facing for whole of his life, is the communication barrier. He has been lucky enough to have all the devices which enable him to read the books through the screen readers, through softwares. So most of the people have no access. They don't have any
And they
access.
don't even know about it.
Yeah, and PTB, I would appreciate, and we are celebrating this success today, that PTB has started sign language in the morning
Thank you
news.
very much.
So this is one of the communication barriers all over the country. The deaf people can't go for job, can't find any school where the sign language interpretation is available. And just assume a woman who is hearing impaired went to a doctor with her newborn baby. How would she explain to the doctor?
Exactly.
There is no option. There is no sign language interpretation as a profession in our hospitals, in our courts. So first barrier, attitude. Second, environment. Third, communication. And the fourth most important barrier is the legislation.
Yeah.
The legislative framework. We don't have any law which binds all the services to be inclusive for a person with disability.
Exactly, and I think that's where we want to take the conversation, because the statement which earlier came, I'm very happy of this statement, first of all, that the Information Minister, Mariam Aurangzeb, has said that legal administrative steps are being taken for welfare of disabled persons. What do you have to say about this?
It would remind me, Ashir, if you want, if
Sure,
you
sure,
allow
sure,
me,
go
I
ahead.
can just quote it. उसने हंसी हंसी में मोहब्बत की बात की, हमने नदीम फिर उसे मुकरने नहीं दिया. Somebody has said about legislation in Pakistan, we would follow it.
All right.
Like we need to have legislation in Pakistan on disability rights now, as the Honorable Information Minister just mentioned very kindly that she's pushing that bill which has been drafted and on the tables of the parliament now.
Exactly.
Like Pakistan has ratified UN Convention in 2011 on the rights of persons with disabilities.
Exactly.
This is the responsibility of the state to incorporate disability issue in all of the existing laws and draft an anti-discrimination or any law which protects the rights of persons with disabilities. So the bill has been drafted by the efforts of people with disabilities all over the country, by experts, by lawyers, by development organizations. So this is the time now we have to, our National Assembly has to adopt that bill
Exactly.
as an act. It will be a first ever Pakistan Disability Rights Act. Balochistan government has already adopted it. Sindh government has done, and now it's part of the national scale. Like we have to be adopted at the federal level as well.
Exactly. But now over here, my question is, for all those people who might not be aware of it, what kind of fundamental rights have been denied for people with special needs? Or let's start from Mr. Zulkarnain.
You can go ahead, sorry.
First of all, we need to understand the right to life.
Okay.
Because if one don't have access to the medical facilities, his right to life get denied. Second, right to have property, right to have mobility. There are 30 basic fundamental rights which are being denied, because if there is no legislation, there are no legislation is very important part, but implementation of that legislation. Second point is, if people with disabilities don't sit in parliament, don't sit in at policy level, nothing has been changed.
Okay,
Because
do you want to be in the parliament on reserved seats, or you want to compete?
okay, without equity, one cannot get equality.
Exactly.
Yeah, right. And there must be technocrat seats, right? Just like we have reserved seat for women,
Yeah.
we have reserved seats for minorities.
Yeah.
Why don't we have for person with disabilities?
Exactly.
And these seats must be from local government level to provincial level, and parliament and senate also. And one can compete if he has been played on a level playing ground. If infrastructure is not accessible, if one cannot move in the streets of the country,
Yeah.
how one can compete with others? So that there is need.
So
to
there needs to be reserved
Yes.
seats.
Nothing, I must say, but there was a line people used to say, nothing about us without us. I must say, nothing without us. Because if we are there, we can bring more, bring our country more pluralist, more, inclusive, if we are there. If we are not there and they will present
Yeah.
law for us, then
One more thing, very sorry. Since we were talking about reserve seats over here, so okay, for example, there is a day, there's a very bright day in the coming years where there are reserved seats for people with special needs. Do you think that you guys are going to be apolitical then?
yeah.
Yeah, we have to be.
Yeah.
Actually, the participation of persons with disabilities in political
Yeah.
process, like starting from the electoral process to the political process, is mandatory.
Yeah.
Otherwise, like I was digging out the history of the disability movement. Why Canada, America, why they have inclusive policies, why they have inclusive legislation. And then when I was digging out this history, I got a book, A Seat on the Table.
All right.
So we need a seat on the table. Even if we have legislation passed by the assembly, the implementation will not be inclusive if people with disabilities are not sitting in the decision-making groups, in the decision-making rooms. So whatever, like it's a reserved seat or it's a technical seat, or somehow we need to have a representation in the decision-making. Otherwise, the policies will not be inclusive. The implementation will not be inclusive.
Yeah,
I second Atif, and one more thing.
Sure.
There must be allocation of budgets, allocation of funds,
Exactly.
because without funds, one cannot bring change. If they'll pass legislation, they'll pass Disability Act, and they don't pass, a budget. They don't set aside budget for that. What is the point?
Exactly.
Just one thing adding
Sure.
on what Zulkarnain said, that when we talk about budget for disability inclusion, it comes as a separate thing which is not available in the poor countries. It's not like that. The, the cost of creating barriers is less than having an inclusive way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like if we construct a ramp which is less expensive
Exactly.
than the stairs.
Yes.
And fancy stairs. So creating barriers is more expensive.
Yeah.
So allocating budget at the very beginning for inclusive infrastructure, inclusive development
Yeah.
is far less than the.
Thank you very much. So, okay, so now we're done with legislation. Now let's come back to the point where there was an environmental barrier as well. So let's talk about that. How do you think we are going to get rid of that? Because over these years, since the independence of Pakistan, since 1947, it's not that, there weren't people with disabilities or special needs as well. And then the census took place. So I just wanted to touch upon the census as well, because back in 1990s when the census took place, there was 2.52 percentage.
2.49.
Yeah, 2.49 was the percentage, and now it has, in 2017, it has just moved like a meager points as well. For example, 0.7 or 0.8
0.9.
or 0.9 is the increase. So do you agree? Because, for example, for all of those people who went home to home, or to all of those people, there weren't any, underlying things which said that, okay, if you have people with
Actually,
disabilities or something
yeah.
of that sort. So how are we going to be inclusive?
Let me give you a little brief history of that census, why these numbers are too low.
Yeah.
Actually, the specific question related to disabilities were missing in the census. Later on, the order of the Supreme Court, a special next year was attached, and you have seen on the media,
Exactly.
a massive campaign was launched by Pakistan Bureau of Statistics to include disability, and the Washington Group question, a set of globally agreed questions on census of persons with disabilities were attached to the main census form. But at the end of the census, the PBC chair, he admitted that the enumerators were not trained.
All right.
And that decision was too late. That's why people with disabilities are still uncounted citizens of the country, and they remain uncounted. So now they are going to have a sample survey, but we request Pakistan Bureau of Statistics through this platform,
Sure.
that sample should be a bigger size, so that we can get at least a good number or good idea of.
And so that there can be recognition of all of these issues too as well, because if we tend to include everybody, so that means that that the number is going to go up anyways.
Because if you don't count a person, that means you neglect them when you are devising policies. You ignore them, and if census don't count us, a person with disabilities, that means the government will not formulate policy. When they will formulate policy, develop policies, they will not count them. They don't have proper data. Those things will be missing. That means there will be issues in future, and there must be a remedy of it, whether that's samples, whatever survey, whatever you can call it, but there must be proper system in place. So one can they can gather data from other program, BSP or the NADRA and other authorities, but though that is questionable, but they can get data from those authorities, and they can accumulate that data with the census, and they can get the good numbers. And another thing, numerators were not only the train, there was half-hearted efforts.
I respect your opinion, but it's not like that. I mean, for example, if I am the one who actually have to go to everyone's place, and there's a form which has been given to me, it's not my mistake if there was this thing missing. But now if we realize, I do respect your opinion, but it can't be half-heartedly, because if I'm out there to count, I will count. But for a certain piece of paper which does not say anything about people with special needs, I think this is where we need to put our heads, and we need to hope for the best too as well in days to come. But now moving on to where I wanted to talk about the attitudinal barriers.
Yeah.
Or I think what we need to do is we need to go for a short break, and meanwhile what you can do is probably have a sip of tea or a cup of coffee, and when you guys are going to come back, we're going to talk about how can we reshape our attitudes amongst all of these people, or rethink about, having a new personality or new characteristics to our personality, where we are standing with arms wide open and we are ready to hug each other. Let's take a break. Good morning.
The ancient city of Taxila is the heart of stonework in Pakistan. This art, which has been preserved and practiced for centuries, can be seen on many major landmarks of the country. Notably, the Pietra Dura work in the Lahore Fort's Sheesh Mahal. These stone products take days to complete and require immense precision and skill from the craftsmen. The final products are perfect for souvenirs, gifts and decoration pieces, each depicting the richness of Pakistani culture at its best. Camel skin and ivory craft are trademarks of Multan's handicraft repertoire. Camel skin is cleaned, dried and mounted onto molds which can be of any shape desired. Multicolored lacquer painting is then used to ornament the molds, which in the end bear a Mughal or Persian feel. Ivory is crafted into pens, chess sets, jewelry and other accessories such as keychains by the expert craftsman. Such detailed work, while being extravagant, is indeed a feat to achieve, and craftsmen of Multan produce beauty with their work which is worthy of global admiration. The enchanting arts and crafts of Pakistan.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back. We hope that you guys are actually taking away something from the show as well, where we're talking about or observing World Disability Day or people with special needs as well. We've earlier touched upon legislation, which we'll come back to. By the end, we have been joined by Mr. Zulkarnain Asghar and Muhammad Atif Sheikh Saab. So now let's come down to attitudinal behaviors, because over here in Pakistan, people do feel yeah, that is an attitude problem. For example, if you go to a restaurant and you see somebody coming onto the wheelchair or somebody with a white cane, people just give expressions which are not really supposed to be there on their faces as well. How do you think that, we're not going to talk about what problems within the attitudinal, but how do you think that we can reshape these attitudes? Mr. Zulkarnain, let's start.
First of all, we need to understand because people don't know how to deal with people with disabilities, we need to present a lot of role models first.
All right.
Second thing, we need to make things more inclusive, so people with disabilities, person with disabilities can move around, they can sit in the restaurant, they can go outside, so these barriers can be changed.
Yeah.
Third thing, most important, which needs to be addressed, there must be something in syllabus. There was only one story that was about Helen Keller.
Yeah.
That has been removed from the syllabus. There must be things must be included in the syllabus.
Yeah.
And there must be dramas, TV dramas, movies and things like this, because to highlight these issues in positive manner, in more progressive manner. That's important thing.
All right, Atif.
Actually, attitudinal barriers, again, I would say, like in Pakistan, are divided into two categories. Medical model, like
Yeah.
we think that people with disabilities are patients.
Yeah.
And secondly, the charity model. We think that people with disabilities always need help.
Okay.
So we don't think beyond that, and we consider whenever we have a
Very
look
true.
on the person with disabilities, whether he or she is a patient or needs some charity or something. Actually, the facts are really different, and how we can sort it out, how we can come out of the situation. We can, as Zulkarnain said, that we need to have a syllabus. I would say broadly, if we have inclusive education system right at the beginning of the school, schools are accessible, children are studying together in the same classroom, then they will learn to live in an inclusive society.
Exactly.
These children will build the society. They will be the future architects, future politicians, future doctors. So ultimately society will be inclusive. So we have to start from the inclusive education. We have to come out of the special education institutional systems.
Thank you very much for saying that. It is very true. But as a matter of fact, I think that if we need to change attitudes, we need to start from the grassroots level. And grassroots level over here is all the other family members who live or probably look after that kid with a special needs. So how do you think we can change that? And then we'll come back to that point because we're running short of time, so we have to be quick.
Actually, Zulkarnain has rightly said we need to show the role models, successful people in the society having disability. Like for example, a disabled person sitting on a wheelchair is talking about the politics of the economy of the country, not about his or her disability. It will change the image of person with disability. It will show that they can contribute in the development.
Exactly. And we do
there is another deep-rooted cause one need to understand. When a child born, parent have the one expectation, two expectation. He or she will perform certain role, and their those expectation get hurt, and they are in trauma phase. They need to understand. They need to highlight this issue that people with disabilities, person with disabilities are human being, equal human being, and their needs are different, and these things could be shown through TV drama, movies, and inclusive education system. There must be a person with disabilities must appear in different form of shows and different kind of things. So those taboo could be addressed, and it's basically we need to challenge those things.
And we will do that together. We need to do that. But one last thing, very sorry, Mr. Producer, because he wants me to wrap it up. And that is, for example, if we have legislation in place, which I'm very confident of, how do you think that we're going to see the implementation of all of that?
The legislation process on disability rights took like more than 25 years in the United States and 20 years in Japan and similarly many other countries. But learning from American Disability Act, we have trained thousands of people with disabilities and women with disabilities, including them, to work as a champion when the law will be adopted. So they will be the people who will push the implementation all over the country.
Amazing.
So we have trained people with disabilities.
Amazing. And we will definitely try to do that. We do have different centers for that, as a matter of fact, but we even want those centers to be inclusive. Thank you very much, Mr. Zulkarnain, and thank you very much, Muhammad Atif Sheikh Saab. And it is because of your acts, and it is because of the fact that you guys are so dedicated that we've actually come down to a point where we every year sit down together and think about how much we have done and how much we still have to cover. But ladies and gentlemen, by the end of the day, it is our responsibility too. So please make sure that whenever you're looking after your kids, they are somebody else's kids too, but as a matter of fact, they're part of our community. Let's make them feel that they are us. So let it be all of us, all together, all the time. Please log on to our Facebook fan page. If you have any feedback, the name is World This Morning. On Twitter, it's World This Morning without a G. On Daily Motion and YouTube, it's World This Morning. And the Fabulous Repeats is going to be at 11 p.m. tonight. Look after yourselves. 1, 2, 3. Good morning. Thank you.